in the tradition of the Theosophical Society, more important than the effects we see on the physical plane almost always are the invisible effects that we can't see. This is also the case with the esoteric side of lodge meetings. So when we look at the higher work from the perspective of lodge meetings, we see that sitting down with a group of people does more for the world than just that group we see then and there. It transcends physical plane activities, and spiritual and inner growth takes place in response to what on the outside may look like a simple gathering of people, but on the inside, different things are taking place. Now, in order for these higher spiritual effects to take place, there needs to be harmony within the group. Selflessness is crucial for this. If any members of the group are unnecessarily egoistic, concerned with their own personality, or gaining perceived power within the group, things like that, it'll really mitigate any of these higher effects that we're aiming at. Forgetting oneself and focusing on the understanding of the subjects leads to harmonious results both in the physical plane that we can see. It's obvious that it helps, but also underlying. And that's what we're going to talk about next. So in order to build up to how the inner planes can in reality be what is most important about these meetings, we have to look at thought as a vibration. So every definite thought that we produce creates a vibration in the mental body. And these vibrations affect the other people around us by causing their mental bodies to also vibrate in a similar way. Each thought attracts living matter from the mental plane, forming a thought form. So purely intellectual thoughts remain on mental levels. Thoughts with desire, emotion, or personal connection also attract astral matter. This taking for granted that we have the sevenfold constitution of man in our mind. So man has a physical body, above that an etheric body, which is the same thing but subtler to go between to get to the astral plane. So we have an astral body, which is our emotional body. Above that, we have a lower mental body, our concrete thoughts, our intellectual thoughts. Above that, we have the higher mental body. This is getting into the realm of the soul, and that's where we see patterns, things of that nature. Above that is the Buddhic body, where we perceive things such as unselfish love, the reason underlying things. Above that is the atomic source of this particular universe that we're in. And that's also what we're aiming at. But bringing this back down to the creation of thought forms, so each thought that we create in this mental body that each of us has, that we're not always aware of, but we have it, creates a thought form out of that mental matter there. And it's real a thing, as the phone or computer that you're looking at in front of you. We just can't measure it or perceive it with the way that things are currently set up. In the same way that until we had developed the proper tools, we couldn't, measure air, for instance. So these thought vibrations spread through the mental plane matter of the same density. This is how things such as the culture of a country can propagate and become its own so quickly and effectively, because all of these people in the same mental plane, same thought process, they influence each other. So we have self-centered thoughts of limited power. They're quickly overpowered. And this is because they don't have any of that higher nature within them. The higher you go up in the constitution of man or the universe, the more power is inherent within it. So naturally, higher level thoughts have a clearer field they're more effective. They can easily overpower the self-centered thoughts. This is just the way the universe is constructed, and thankfully so. Now, looking at the higher mental activity, when we try to comprehend abstract concepts such as how the universe came into existence, as detailed in the Secret Doctrine, we're using our higher abstract mind, and this can affect people in also higher ways. Above that, we have unselfish affection and higher aspiration towards the Buddhic plane, equally more effective than the higher mental plane. And then we come to theosophical thought as almost a cultural phenomenon in and of itself. Especially when this book was written in the early 20th century, there was no New Age yet. No one else was really propagating these ideas but Theosophical Society. And so Leadbeater writes in his book, The Hidden Side of Lodge Meetings, that these theosophical thoughts send out powerful, unopposed vibrations, and these vibrations awaken dormant parts of the body. We can kind of see the effectiveness by the fact that the New Age exists, largely because these theosophical thoughts back then were able to influence and elevate the other people around them who were perhaps not ready for the unselfishness, the pure unselfishness of theosophical thought, but were able to take it and turn it into what is now the New Age. It's a speculation on my part. Now, the individual benefits of elevated thought are that it awakens new parts of the thinking apparatus, and it elevates and liberalizes overall thought, producing significant benefits. So elevated thought affects us individually, as well as we'll see in the next slide, collectively. The thought power of people together is somewhat obviously more powerful than someone by themselves, and it's exponentially more powerful. So it's not like, you have three people thinking the same thing. Now it's 3 times more powerful. No, it would now be something along the lines of, I'm guessing, 9 or 10 times more powerful now that you have 3 people. It's a product, not a sum. We also have the idea that regular Theosophical Lodge meetings elevate and ennoble the thought of the community. So this not only helps the individual who attends these meetings, but the entire community where these lodge meetings are taking place can be elevated by the fact that they exist and are taking place there. So you could increase the underlying vibration of the entire community you're in, and you can help them in a way that they will not necessarily perceive, but they will be helped nonetheless. So those thought forms we talked about earlier will radiate from the center of this lodge activity, and it affects minds that are already responsive to such ideas. So there are people who have never heard the word theosophy, yet because of their past lives perhaps are in resonance with these ideas already. And the thought forms that we radiate from the center, from a lodge, could affect those people and maybe point them in our direction so that they can get the direct help that they're already looking for. Thought forms also convey the exact nature of the thought. So if you're, for instance, reading a book that many earnest seekers have read in the past, you may very easily tap into the thought form of these thousands of seekers before you. And beyond the words, you'll tap into exactly what those words are trying to convey. When we work in a lodge, the same thing can happen, where our combined effort makes it easier for other people to grasp the idea itself, which is beyond the words. And this last bullet point here, that has a greater impact than intentional propaganda efforts. And that's because we're working on the mental plane itself directly and not just with the words. And so also within the Theosophic tradition is the idea of great masters, people who have evolved beyond where we are now and see things more clearly than we do. They're simply older than us. Their souls are older. And these great masters have evolved beyond humanity. They don't need to be here anymore, but they choose, instead of going on to greater heights, to turn around and help these people that are still on Earth. These masters are always looking for people who will help them do this more effectively. The masters were helped when they were humans by people that were older than them. And now that we are the young humanity, we look to these same masters, and they're looking for people who can teach others in the same way that the masters were taught when they were human. So lodges are good places because of the effort and attention that's there for these masters to focus their energy and help the world in that way. Also within the Theosophical tradition, we have the idea of the Logos, which is the source of that particular solar system. The idea being that the physical sun is the physical representation of the Logos, which is really the spiritual entity underlying everything that's around us. We exist and have our being in this Logos. It's the source of our existence. Now, when a group of people are working towards union with that Logos to see and understand things as they really are, by the very nature of how the solar system is set up, the light of that Logos will then flood on us to help us understand that even more. It's always ready, always there. And one of the hidden sides of a lodge meeting is that we are in a better position to attract that towards us. And then to wrap this up, we go to the occultist's perspective of studying the higher inner side of nature. So these lodge meetings where a group of people come together and talk, oftentimes we look at it from the perspective of how do we get more people to come, and that's the most important thing. Sometimes we'll even sacrifice the content to be less theosophical so that it will attract members from the world at large who are not necessarily interested in selfless activity. Now, there's always balance, there's give and take in these things, but the underlying perspective as we make theosophy a force in our lives should be this inner side of it, where more important than having a vast amount of people attend these meetings is having maybe a few people who understand what we're trying to do, so that this inner side of it can be propagated, so that invisibly, imperceptibly, we can help the world around us. And moving on from the occultist perspective to practical theosophy. Theosophy is meant to be free from useless discussion and embrace a life of mutual tolerance, charity, and love. So the more that we can have these lodge meetings reflect practical, real spirituality, mutual tolerance, charity, and love, the more these inner effects will propagate beyond us and help the world around us. So I hope that was helpful to maybe see a little more clearly that the hidden side of lodge meetings are more important than what's on the surface.